Aloha. You've probably heard that the major role of the legislative branch is to adopt laws. At the state and federal level, these are called statutes, and at the county level, they're called ordinances. But why should you care, and why should you learn about statutes? Well, you should learn about statutes because whether you know about them or not, you are bound by them. It will not be a defense, for example, if you are charged with computer hacking, that you didn't know every word of the statute. The phrase ignorance of the law is no defense applies to the statutes. Now, statutes aren't all bad, aren't all punitive. There are many statutes that are actually very helpful to the everyday citizen. I'm going to show you a simple one that applies to you, and then we're going to talk about the structures of statutes and what they look like. Here is Section 8-1 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes. Let me walk you through it step by step, starting with the upper left-hand corner, like you were reading it from top to bottom. First thing you're going to notice is the section symbol. It looks like two S's printed slightly askew on top of each other. That just means we're talking about an individual section of the Hawaii Revised Statutes. The next number you'll see is 8. That means that you will find this in Chapter 8 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes. And then it will say -1, meaning it's the first section in Chapter 8. So Section 8-1 is the unique identifier that tells you which holidays are designated in the state of Hawaii. Every statute has its own unique number. Now you'll see the heading of the statute is in bold. It says holidays designated. Then the rest of the text tells you what are the state holidays in Hawaii. I'll let you pause this if you like to read the list. Maybe you'll find some surprises. Okay, I'm assuming you've paused it if you wanted to read it in full, and you're back. I want to draw your attention about 2/3 of the way down the screen after the last paragraph where it says any day designated by proclamation by the President of the United States or by the Governor as a holiday. After that, you'll see a bracket that says L 1896, C66, Section 1. For the moment, you don't need to know what that means. Actually, it's a designation of when the law was first adopted and a little code that lets you know when it's been amended throughout the years. I'll teach you how to read this when we get to the executive branch. For right now, just realize that it's there and it gives you some information, but you don't have to worry about it for the next 2 weeks. The legislature also offers you additional help in figuring out how to interpret these statutes. The first thing you'll see here is cross-references. There is another statute that uses 8-1, and that section is Chapter 1, Section 29, where it says computation of time under cross-references. If you wanted to know more about how the holidays statute is used, you could go to Section 1-29. The next thing you'll see is a cross-reference to the rules of court. The court system has many sets of rules. This is simply a shorthand that you don't need to learn for this class that tells you where in these court rules Section 8-1 is mentioned. Next, you'll see something that says Attorney General Opinions. The Attorney General is the attorney for the state executive agencies. They often ask the Office of the Attorney General, that's the Department of the Attorney General, for information just the way a regular client would ask the attorney for information. So when the Attorney General issues information to the executive agencies, frequently it makes these opinions public. This particular one says the topic of this Attorney General opinion is when a federal holiday is a state holiday, and you'll find it in @GenOp, which stands for Attorney General Opinions, at 85-99. 85 identifies the year, 1985, and -9 means it's the 9th opinion issued in 1989. Last, you'll see that the reviser of statutes who puts these together has given you a link to case notes. Case notes indicate where the judges have used this statute and maybe done some interpretation. This is very useful if you're doing legal research, and you'll find out more about case notes when you get to your legal research course. For now, I just want to let you know that this information is here. It will direct you to cases that use the exact statute that you're looking at, so they can be very helpful if you're trying to interpret what this section means. And that's pretty much the shape and structure of all statutes within the HRS. There's a specific unique section which refers to the chapter and the section within the chapter. There's going to be a bolded heading which catches your eyes so it's easy to skim through the statutes and find the next one. And then there's going to be the text that follows. Take a look at another statute, one that applies to you in everyday life as well. This is section 291C-103, Racing on Highways. So you know that it's going to be found in chapter 291C-103, and it's going to be about racing. After the heading, it says, except as provided in section 291C-149, no person shall drive any vehicle in any race, speed competition or contest, drag race or acceleration contest, test of physical endurance, exhibition of speed or acceleration, or for the purpose of making a speed record, and no person shall in any manner participate in any race, competition, contest, test, or exhibition prohibited by this section. The next 3 paragraphs in the statute define what drag race means, what racing means, what exhibition of speed or acceleration means. Getting down to the 5th paragraph, the one that begins with E, it says any person who violates this section, except for subsection D, shall be fined not more than $500 or imprisoned not more than 6 months, or both. Any person who violates subsection D shall be fined not more than $500 or be sentenced to perform community service, or both. So you can see that D gets a lesser penalty because you can't be imprisoned if you violate D. And I'm going to let you pause this video on your own to see if you can figure out why B and C could get you possible prison time, but D won't. And if you go further down from that, you will see if you have multiple offenses within 5 years, you will also get additional penalties. You'll get a 1-year license suspension or up to a 3-year license suspension. And again, this one has case notes, etc., but we're not going to worry about that right now. I just want you to be used to looking at statutes and becoming comfortable with the format: section, chapter, bold heading, and contents. Now that we've looked at statutes, we're ready to take a look at bills. What are bills? Well, I want you to stop and think about what life would be like if we were frozen into using the laws that were in place 50 years ago. What kind of laws wouldn't we have today? Well, laws about computer hacking are one of them, and updated laws about speeding, laws about offenses that we now find important but that weren't important 50 years ago, like littering and environmental damage. All of those are innovations over the past 50 years. What the legislature does is to review the existing statutes and amend them, repeal them, or add whole new ones in order to comport with contemporary society. Let me give you one example. Here's a law from the chapter on veterinarians, which is chapter 471. 471 section 10 deals with the reasons that the state can refuse to grant a license to a veterinarian. Now, if you pause this and take a look, you'll see that most of the reasons that the state can refuse to give a license have to deal with the competence, professional misconduct, mental incompetence, but there's also things that have to do with fraud and deceit, making a false statement, etc. One thing that's missing was brought to the legislature's attention in 2010. Somebody mentioned that there's no such thing as a refusal to grant a license for ethics violations. So the legislature adopted a statute that's meant to address exactly that. Now that you've looked at the actual statute 471-10, let's take a look at the bill that was passed by the legislature to amend this statute. I'm going to click on a tab and take you to Senate Bill 2772. You can tell it's a Senate bill because it lists the Senate on the left-hand top here, and it also says SB. It says a bill for an act relating to veterinary medicine, and you'll see that it refers to section 471.10 right here. It's going to amend it by adding the following subsection. Now, the way amendments work in bills is that if the legislature wants to delete something, they bracket it and strike it through, as they did here in paragraph 9. If they want to add new language, they underline it like they did in paragraph 12. So if you take a look at paragraph 12 here, you'll see that it allows denial of a veterinary license for conduct or practice contrary to the recognized principles of medical ethics of two specified organizations. So that's what the legislature did to amend the statutes to keep them current. So that's why it's important for you to know how to find a bill and how the bill process works. If a statute is going to be amended, you or your client may want to have input into that amendment. You or your client might be the ones who instigate a change in the law. And it's all done through bills. And we're going to be looking at this week and next week exactly how that process is carried out.